For this month, Stephen requested me on Patreon to review the Japanese animated film In This Corner of the World. Set during World War II, it was directed by Sunao Katabuchi, and this is actually the first film of his I've seen. The movie centers on a young girl who's forced off into a marriage and sent to live with his family as the war rages on. The film is set in and near the city of Hiroshima, and part of what makes the story interesting is how it's primarily told from the perspective of these regular people as they live their lives. However, we the audience know what's coming, and that adds another element. The dates are even shown on screen as we await the events of August 1945. In This Corner of the World uses a storytelling device I've noticed in a number of Japanese animated films. A good amount of them tend to follow people in their daily lives as they go to work and school, and there's also an emphasis on what these families do together, whether it's how they eat or sleep or entertain themselves. I like that Japanese animation allows for these kinds of stories. A lot of the first hour primarily consists of these little episodes involving the lead protagonist Suzu as we get to know her and her situation. The movie does not use a traditional narrative as it jumps from one event to the next. The screenplay manages to do the job of developing Suzu and allowing us to peek into her life and understand those around her. The movie also manages to give us an idea of what the time period was like for Japanese citizens and the traditions and daily habits. There are portions of the story where I think things happen a little too quickly. We're not yet finished digesting them before the film shows us something new. Nonetheless, I was engaged by what was happening on screen, and the film knows when to show Suzu at her happiest and the more distressing parts of her life. The second hour is when we truly start to see the effects of the war. Katabuchi builds and builds, using the audience's knowledge of history to create the needed tension. There are little things that start being introduced as we recognize images from the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's also fascinating seeing the perspective of these historical events from the characters. The themes of In This Corner of the World are focused on the impact war can have even if you're a certain distance away from the event. The main characters can only learn about things based on what's on the radio or what the military tells them, and we see the influence this has on their views of the war. Through the majority of the film, Suzu is mostly preoccupied with her new life in this marriage and trying her best to fuel her creativity. However, the war eventually becomes hard to ignore. This is a movie that starts off almost calming with the images, but that calmness goes away in the second half. Katabuchi heightens the intensity for several moments, especially during the air raid scenes. He also uses sound to great effect. There's one scene where airplanes are shooting and we completely understand Suzu's fear as the sound of bullets go off around her. The animation is also fantastic, as In This Corner of the World is a stunning looking film. The animation is largely consistent through most of the film, but then there are moments where the animation changes to reflect the mood of the scene. The backgrounds also capture the landscape and time period really well. The filmmakers actually did a lot of research to accurately depict the locations, and the attention to detail does come across in the finished film. The movie was animated at MAPPA, a newer studio founded about 10 years ago. MAPPA has mostly worked in television, with In This Corner being one of the few features they produced, and going by this film, I think they have a lot of promise. A few years after the movie's original release, Katabuchi created an almost 3-hour-long extended cut. Now, the version I watched on Netflix was the 130-minute version, and I thought that was a decent enough length for the film, but maybe the extended version is better. I don't know. Anyway, I thought In This Corner of the World was a beautifully done film that managed to tackle its subject matter with the needed respect and understanding, and I definitely recommend it. Thank you for requesting this review, Stephen.